So I think it was Milo who made the point that there's a difference between people actually carrying out threats and carrying out violence against other people, and mere threats that, in his words, kind of have no plausible chance of ever being carried out. But within Gamergate and against both sides of the argument, there has been more malicious activity than really making threats, in the form of doxing, releasing people's private information online, their phone number, their address, which opens the thing up to any idiot who wants to go along and carry out an act against that person to become actually something that could plausibly occur. So surely that.
Yes, it's perfectly true, and that's happened on both sides, and where it happens is outrageous, and it's what I was wrongly accused of doing by my editor. Yeah, no, of course, you're absolutely right. It happens in both directions, and that is, I think, over the line when you publish somebody's home address or their phone number. That's a lot more than saying I'm gonna rape you or whatever. Most of this is just total nonsense, and the people who are writing it know it's nonsense, the people receiving it know it's nonsense. When you post somebody's home address and phone number, that is materially different.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. I can't argue that that is the carrying out of a threat or it's the next step, but I still don't agree with your assertion that women are less able to deal with that sort of thing. I think, the emotional response of receiving a threat or indeed an act of doxing or of receiving something unpleasant in the mail, which are all sort of like one step on from each other really, and I don't think you can say someone just saying it is less serious, because obviously in your case somebody did carry something out and you don't know if the person who did that was someone else who was making threats elsewhere. But I think the emotional response of somebody to that is going to vary from person to person regardless of gender.
What's weird though is you have feminists who say damsel in distress is the worst thing that's ever happened to video games. Yeah, as soon as they get something through the door, they cast themselves immediately in that role. They go immediately to men to complain about what's happened to them. They act out precisely the role they say is a terrible thing to happen in video games. They become living embodiments of the damsel in distress. I do think men are, and I don't think it's a hugely sexist thing to say.
Women can complain to other
men are better at shrugging this stuff off. And thank God we are, because we're a lot nastier to each other. We say much worse things to each other. We're just better at letting it go.
James, where do you see it going, Gamergate? Do you think anyone will get hurt? Do you think there are going to be more female video games?
I'm actually really pessimistic about what Gamergate will achieve.
In the gaming industry?
In the gaming industry, I don't think it's going to have a lasting impact other than a lot of harassment and a lot of threats being cast around.
Because no game company wants to get involved, really. They want to stay away.
I mean, video game developers probably aren't going to change anything that does a game. Fantastically, what we have is indie developers who can make their own games, and we have platforms that can promote them, and through their fans we can share that work. But I don't think in 10 years' time we're going to be talking about it.
Maybe asexual games?
Asexual games.
I'm just saying as a technical option.
Well, this is just...
Us philandry feminists, before I start bursting out into tears in a minute, because I can't have it. We sorry, that was me trying. I take that back. I'm really sorry. But what I'm trying to say is, in terms of kind of, I adore classic gangster movies. Sorry, I did. But I adore old gangster films. I adore movies that are either within the sci-fi genre or whatever genre that explore a darker, deeper side in literature or whatever it might be. What I don't appreciate, though, is if they're not recognised. There's a massive canon of criticism within the film industry, within the literature, within literature, that explores these things and highlights them and calls them out. No one gets a death threat for that. No one does. So stop saying it's acceptable. It is not acceptable. It's not acceptable in the slightest. But once you realise that, then feel free. More pissing dead corpses, preferably of prostitutes.
Any new question? Someone wants to go ahead. Go ahead. You can reverse, guys.
Do you think it's possible to eliminate...
raise your voice.
Sorry. Is it possible to eliminate harassment and abuse online without also eliminating anonymity and really beefing up the law as well.
James,
How would you go about eliminating?
You always comment in your real name.
Yeah, I do use my real name online. I think as soon as you introduce anonymity to any kind of online forum, you give people a free rein to say whatever they want. And in a way, you have to kind of defend that to an extent, because I don't want an internet where everyone's forced to use their real name. I don't think that's a healthy way to use the internet.
Video games like World of Warcraft, you don't use your real name.
You don't use your real name, and World of Warcraft has a lot of harassment and trolling and threats cast around.
It's not just about that, it's people who, for example,
Can you
rape victims who want to talk about it, who don't want to use their real names,
Can
who
you-
need to have that anonymity.
There's a huge value in anonymity.
Can you buy drugs in the chat of the video game?
You can buy drugs online anonymously. Yes, you can.
Because you're anonymous anyway in the video game, so you can use it.
to go away.
Yeah, I mean, the internet's a fantastic thing, and I don't want to start policing it. But I obviously, if we could live in a world where there are no threats, no death threats online, that would be fantastic.
What about Words with Friends?
Sorry?
The game Words with Friends.
That's
Words with Friends.
Words with friends. That's quite
Probably,
passe.
yeah.
That's quite, well, that's Zynga. Words
So
with
you can
friends.
chat, yeah.
That's quite passe.
Someone new want to ask something? Okay, yeah, go ahead, yeah. Okay, just finish it.
At the beginning of the talk, the discussion, Milo mentioned that he didn't want people like me to suck easily in the gaming industry. She wanted me to give her, just wanted to elaborate what he meant by that.
You want someone else who looks like her.
And just that would be a relative point, which,
Okay, yeah, let me clarify what I said. I think that she's awarded space and press and a platform entirely disproportionate to the quality of what she says. As her arguments don't stand up to scrutiny, I think she is an omnipresence in the game industry, which her work does not justify. I like to see her out of the game industry because I think her arguments are wrong. But what I really mean is, we need.
Doesn't that mean you're limiting her right to expression?
We need.
You yourself have said that you wish, to publicise your views on things. Why is she not allowed to publicise it?
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Will you cancel an event in Utah if you got death threats and the police said?
Well, this is another thing.
Maybe you just go and do it.
Once you start unpicking these things, she didn't do it because of that. She did it as a political protest because of Utah's open carry laws. She was making a political point. It wasn't about threats. It was about the fact that people are allowed to wear guns and stuff in Utah. I've spoken too much already. You're right. It behoves us to have our opponents speaking as strongly as possible, so that when we beat them in arguments, we know that we've really got it right. I'll just say one last thing, which is that and this is not an original point to me, there's so many quotes about this in history, but when you, and Katie Hopkins is the example of this for her hideousness.
She's a video game developer.
I kind of love that. When we stick up for free speech, we are never sticking up for arrogance of civic virtue. We are always sticking up for the ugly fringes, because that's where we have to make our stance for free speech. We're always sticking up for the Julian Blocks. We're always sticking up for the Dapper Laughs, Julian Assange. We're always sticking up for these controversial people at either end. And it can look like I'm standing up here sticking up for misogynists. I'm not. I'm saying that when you take a hard look,
stick out for instead of misogyny, one word like.
I don't know. The gatriarchy.
Get his comment and continue.
So there was a question about where the game game's going. I've been sort of covering it since about September for TechCrunch and a number of other outlets. So I think there are probably two things that keep on driving it. The first thing would be the fact that games still believe that the press is treating them unfairly, and that they're going to continue to be treated unfairly, and that certain things like the harassment they receive just won't get coverage. And I suppose the second thing is the fear of censorship. And I think probably from what I've seen, gamers are less concerned with what people like BBC are saying, so much as what it might lead to in terms of these huge petitions to get games pulled from Steam or from stores. Yes, it's about what it might lead to. And so I think addressing those two concerns, both the unfair reporting, there seems to be a wide acknowledgement of harassment on both sides, but there hasn't been reporting of the harassment on both sides. Do you know what I mean?
Do you want to say something about that?
Well, I agree with you, really. I don't think the reporting has been fair. I think, as I already pointed out earlier, the people who were against Gamergate were harassing and abusing people people supported it. Supporters of Zoe Quinn performed a hack on an initiative called the Fine Young Capitalist that was trying to encourage diversity and get women into gaming, which is absurd really, because you'd think that would be something that she'd support given her stance in the industry. So yeah, I do think that the reporting was unfair to gloss over those things. But like I said, I don't think that political agendas coming into gaming press is necessarily wrong. I just think that there needs to be more of an intelligent counter-argument, because at the moment, all the reporting of people supporting gaming is just the trolls and the harassment, whereas that may not be the case, but somebody, and I don't know who or where from, needs to come forward and get a voice for those people into the press, so both sides feel like they're being represented. And yes, and Milo, it's just a fine job.
Just it seems to me at the end of what seems to be like we're wrapping up, but yet again, it's not about the kind of the lies, the stratas that we seem to carve, representing what is actually happening out there. It doesn't seem to me to be Gamergate pro versus Gamergate con. It seems to me that there's a militant strand that goes laterally across it on both sides. There are militant feminists that are being dicks, and there are people within Gamergate who are being dicks also. So again,
militant dicks.
Quite. I can say that one more time. Bigger militant. Later. But what I'm trying to say is that within either side, you have two forces working within it, which seems to me to be uniting people far more than whether you stand on for or against. It seems to me people who are militant about it and are absolutely hostile, and those who are saying, what is all this fuss about?
Milo has a personal announcement about his face being featured in a video game.
Yeah, I do.
Which,
it's just, I mean, the whole Gamergate thing is really about, sort of authoritarianism and banning versus free expression.
You are going to be in a game.
And the worst possible manifestation of free expression, the worst thing you could possibly imagine, I am going to be in a video game.
What's the name?
No, although I have just come back from Barbados where I played that very successfully.
Pin penis on
The
Milo. Pin the penis on the Milo. Do you know the video game?
I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you which game it is.
But will people be able to abuse you in the video game?
You will be able to decapitate me. You will be able to douse me with a lady over my head. You will be able to douse me in petrol and set me on fire. You will be able to machine gun me. You will be able to urinate on my corpse. You will be able to throw me off cliffs. You'll go to all sorts of things. I'm not. No. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you what title it is yet, but yes, you will be able to do all of these things.
Illegally download these things.
I have no worries that it's going to make video gamers want to do it in real life.
Okay, Dan, thanks. You can come and ask questions. It's been a pleasure. Hashtag Gamergate, thanks. Put some video on. Intense.